Have you ever wanted to be the first to know if aliens really exist? Well, with Nebula, you can be! Nebula is the streaming service that's home to It's Probably Not Aliens, as well as our YouTube channels. And the best part? All of our content goes up early on Nebula. So when we break first contact with ET, you'll be the first to find out. That's right, you'll be able to listen to the next episode of this show before anyone else. Plus, we post bonus content that you won't find any other place. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablynotaliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and be the first to know if this time it really is aliens.
Scott, I fucked up again.
You fucked up.
We have
Specifically you.
Yeah. So we're starting a new season, which means that we have to talk about a handful of things I got wrong on the giant pile of things.
And we're recording this in January, so this is fitting, new year, new us. And we won't get anything wrong this year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're not going to get anything wrong this year.
Mm-hmm. This is the year of no wrong. First correction, though, is important, which is that in an episode we did a couple of years ago when we were in Kalamazoo, we did report that the people of Ancient Aliens, when we saw them live in person, a thing that is still wild, that they reported, and we just kind of said truthfully, like we just kind of repeated their lines, that Eric von Daniken is alive and healthy.
Yes, we echoed the lies that they told us.
Eric von Daniken is alive and healthy, and I have been this Sunday when I received approximately 800 million emails and text messages that we're still getting to this day. That 90 years young Eric von Daniken, friend of the show, Eric von Daniken, author of Chariot of the Gods.
Friend of the show. Classic friend of our show, Eric von Daniken. Absolutely.
No longer is healthy or alive. So that's the first correction. But since it was just so important for our show, I just thought that we should have a moment, just remember von Daniken for the outstanding person that he was, who in his firm belief that brown people can't stack rocks. So I just wanted to have one moment of
Actually, hold on, wait. Taps with an air horn goes hard.
All right, let's do this.
That's so good, actually.
How long would it take for us to get Rod Kim to make a version of Taps just made with tune-shifted air horns?
Dude, okay, I could do it, no offense to Rod, but I could do it because I bet you there's a MIDI file of Taps, and then you just replace the music, the sound with air horns. But I don't feel like doing it. So someone else do it. Maybe the editor of this episode can do it.
And so I did.
Or maybe I will reach out to Rod. I don't know if that's a thing he's even comfortable doing. I don't want to put that on him to make a joke of a real human's death, but I'm happy to do it because Eric von Daniken is our mortal enemy of this show.
Well, no longer mortal is the thing.
Well, I think proof that he's mortal, I think, actually.
to quote Agent K, he's not dead, he just went home. Rest in peace.
Look, I'm sorry.
He's defrauding he's defrauding Boy Scouts in heaven now.
Yeah. If you're a listener of this podcast, you know Eric von Daniken's not a good guy. Was not a good guy. And his legacy of terrible ideas will live on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's just a shame, Tristan, because every piece of information that we had from the Ancient Aliens community was that not Georgios Tsoukalos, he's the one who told us this, was that Eric von Daniken was the healthiest he's ever been. He was so healthy and strong and healthy in his 90s. He was 90 years old, and he's
he couldn't make it to Kalamazoo, but he's so healthy.
He was so healthy, everyone. Trust me.
Here's a video of him in an airplane.
There's a video of him in an airplane being so healthy. The healthiest and strongest and most virile he's ever been. Struck down in his prime, I say.
90 years young. Only the good die young. So that's... also New Year, New Us. Do you have a New Year's resolution?
My New Year's resolution is to just add a little flourish into my everyday life. Just little flourishes.
Jazz hands.
Do a spin when you enter a room. That's sort of my go-to right now. Is I'm just like, oh, I'm entering a room, even if I'm just all alone. Do a little spin. Add some joy and whimsy to your life.
That's pretty good.
What about you?
I have I normally don't do New Year's resolutions because of, they never work. But I kind of have one that I didn't really come to until like a few days in. But I'm like, you know what? This is a thing I'm going to do this year, and I feel good about it, which is that I think that a lot of us have picked up some very bad habits from the pandemic.
Okay.
Specifically, we have all become shut-ins. We don't see people that much anymore and don't really go out. So my 2026 hashtag goal, my 2026 resolution is that I want to be more social.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of people are still in that habit. So I know that I need to be the one who instigates and reaches out. So I'm making my goal is to keep in touch with my friends more and poke them to do stuff.
I love that.
That's my goal.
I also need to be more social, and my therapist was like, what about going to playing at a local card game shop or board game shop and just playing something like Magic of the Gathering with people? And I was like, I know.
Magic of the Gathering?
Magic of the Gathering. And I was like...
Marjorie Taylor Gathering.
I was like, I don't know how to play Magic the Gathering. I have a friend, Phil, who obviously knows how. He's got a YouTube channel about it. But I don't have the finances, I don't think, to fund myself playing Magic the Gathering. Few people do. So I'm exploring that field because I also want to be more social. And then when I enter the room to battle people in Magic of the Gathering, I can do a little spin to show them that I am here to play. I'm here to clown around.
Pro tip: if you want to do Magic the Gathering but you don't want to get the super huge commitment and stuff like that, do drafts. Drafts are a really good way to do it.
Just drink beer. I get you. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So we're at that level. So drafts are a way you play the game, and they often will have them before a new set comes out, where you sit with a group of people at a table with a handful of booster packs. You buy $20 worth of booster packs or something like that, and then you crack, or I think it's 3. You open them up. You take a card, pass it to the right, then they pass you that. And you're trying to craft a deck on the fly, and you play with that deck at the end of the night.
I think I've seen this before. I think I've seen people do. I think I saw people do this just recently, actually, because I did go to my local board game shop just to see if they had Magic the Gathering tournaments, and of course they do. And I think I saw that a big horde of people doing this exact thing that you're describing. Because I was like, that's so weird. Why is everyone opening packs together? And organizing things? Is it just everyone's just oh, look what I got? No, but what you're saying makes sense. That's a fun idea.
Yeah, that you draft and then you play a tournament with the deck that you have to make with the pieces that you scramble together. It's very fun, and it's not a huge financial commitment because you're not buying singles and stuff like that. There's one where they just give you a whole bunch of booster packs, and then you have to make a deck out of whatever you open from that. That's another sealed. That's what's called sealed, which they do when a new set's coming out as well. And oftentimes, when a new set's coming out, game stores will have an event, maybe a couple days before the set comes out, where they'll have an event where you can go and do that, a preview type thing. So you could do that, and that would be...
This is all very good.
Yeah.
This is all very good and helpful, and it makes me forget that we are recording.
Oh, yeah, shit. Oh, yeah.
It just sort of sounds like I'm talking. I am talking with my friend Tristan.
We haven't seen each other in a month or so this is a big one.
I know.
We had Christmas and stuff.
Good to be back.
Okay. We do have questions. We do have a few corrections. So I'll mention one thing.
This is a corrections episode. If you didn't catch the theme, that's why we had to correct.
This is It's Probably Not Aliens, a podcast where we talk about ancient astronaut theory, ancient aliens, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, kind of conspiracies, UFOs from
all that stuff.
Yeah. I am your host, Tristan, and I know nothing about... apparently, this is what we're going to learn today.
Apparently, yeah. That's what we're going to learn. I'm Scott. I'm another one of the hosts. I am here, and then Tristan, watch this.
Oh, he's just spun in his chair. He's flourished.
I just spun around in my chair. I flourished. I don't know why spinning is like the thing.
Maybe flourish isn't your theme. Your theme this year is spin.
maybe it's just spin. Maybe it's just like turn around in a circle. Anyway.
Yes,
we're doing a corrections episode. That's why we had to correct the record. Eric von Daniken did die. Rest in piss.
No longer living.
Yes.
So every season, we start with a corrections episode to do two things. One, have a kind of light start to everything. And two, be more honest than Ancient Aliens, because when we fuck up, and we fuck up a lot, I would like to do that. And I also use them as...
Not this year.
I do also use them as learning opportunities for myself and for you guys, where we clarify what we went on with. And you guys deliver. Also, I guess this episode is going to... And I should point this out right now. It's almost dedicated to Leaf. Leaf is a person who sent in a bunch of corrections that I think he was very not happy with the podcast about. And then... because I don't remember things very well, I kept forgetting to put them in the corrections, and then I would get an email every corrections episode being like, hey, I sent you all of these corrections a while back. Where are they? Where are the corrections? So this is, I don't want, this
apology.
I don't want to set the precedent that if you just get mad at me and email me enough times that you'll get on the show. But these are good ones, and so I'm not going to drop it. But there's a few other quick ones as well. So.
Don't we have a Google form for corrections instead of emails? Maybe I need to update that.
I collect them primarily from a handful of places. Our email address.
We've not.
I collect them from my email. I collect them from people get the Discord server has a corrections channel and comments on YouTube videos, and sometimes I get them on like Blue Sky and stuff.
Actually. This is all right. Here's what we'll do. And editor, edit this out if this is boring. Since we do all this stuff in Notion anyway, we can create a Notion form that goes directly to this database, probably, or something like that, and then send it out to people.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anyway,
we'll put it in the show notes.
We will find. We'll consolidate we will consolidate our corrections so that we have a single form for people to fill out, so that it's easier, so that stuff like this doesn't happen in the future. But
there you go.
Either way.
Okay. We'll get to Leaf after we do 3 quick ones beforehand. So the first one I got here is from Andy, and this is a little bit of this is the kind of times where it's like sometimes pedantry is important, and I agree. So this was like a small mistake in the way that I spoke about something, and Andy was right in that it's not nothing. So in the episode on the Baghdad battery, Andy pointed out that when talking about it, I said diode to represent basically an anode, a cathode, or just generically the terminals of a battery several times. And that is not what a diode is. So it was the wrong word. So thank you for that. It should be technically electrode or voltorb, or no, specifically it could be anode or cathode. And so in talking about the Baghdad battery or terminals in general. So diode is actually a part of a semiconductor, specifically something called the p-n junction, which allows you current to flow primarily in one direction. So it's a signal control thing. And a diode does have an anode and a cathode, but a diode itself is the complete one-way electronic device. It's not the battery terminal.
Okay.
So to kind of give a little bit more to it, a battery cell has 2 electrodes. The anode, which is where the oxidation occurs and the electrons are released, and the cathode, where the reduction occurs and the electrons are accepted. So, completing the circuit. And I'm sure in a future corrections episode where I'm going to have to do some very in-depth corrections to my attempt to explain electromagnetism a few episodes ago, I imagine we'll be coming back to this, but in a typical galvanic battery during discharge, the anode is the negative terminal and the cathode is the positive terminal. And allows ions, not electrons, to move internally between the electrodes, while electrons flow through the external circuit. There you go.
All right.
In the context of the Baghdad battery, it had an iron rod acting as the quote-unquote anode, and the surrounding copper cylinder as the quote-unquote cathode, except that it's not. So, yeah, that was me being bad. But then on top of that, we did answer. We learned a little bit about batteries and electricity, so... It's worth.
I like it. Thank you for the correction.
Do we have a button? Do we have a sound for?
Oh, yes. Let me see. I've added some additional stuff on here recently, but
what's that like?
We'll just do.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The blorp.
Oh, the blorp. Yeah. That one.
Yeah, I blorped.
We could do that, or we could just do the classic bell. Inconsistency. What is this? Wrong thing corrected. We need like a catchier way of saying wrong thing corrected.
We need like a little gong.
Oh well.
Okay. The next one is that.
What else do I have on here? I don't even know what all I have on here. I have something called an alarm.
That's our emergency episode.
That's not good. That's our emergency.
You know what? While we're on this topic of me fucking up, do you want to, Internet and Scott, hear about how I wasted way too much time researching almost an entire episode of this show only to toss it out?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, this happened very recently. So, Scott, you might remember a few days ago, you sent me a text message saying emergency episode, or like kind of emergency episode. You sent me a link to an article.
I'm responsible for this. Oh no.
No. This is my own fault. So you sent me that, and I was like, oh, interesting. So I was like, I'm gonna go find out what this is about. I found out what it was about, and I was like, is there like some cranks talking about this with UFOs, as there usually is? And I did find an article. And it led me down a whole rabbit hole where I was talking about zombie websites and dead internet theory, because the article I found, the only article I could find that talked about this gamma ray burst in the context of alien stuff was from a British like maintenance business website that had forgotten to.
Okay.
You learn more about the internet than you do about anything else. But like a British maintenance website had let its domain expire, and someone swooped it up and replaced it with a sort of like shitty content SEO mill website that was like, you know, those websites that are so full of ads that they're almost not even usable. So it had been replaced with a website that was crammed with articles on random esoteric topics. And one of them was trying to take a bunch of sci-fi stuff and apply it to this gamma ray burst that you mentioned, and tried to say that it was actually like that they had evidence that it was like an ancient, like a text and stuff like that. And I had a whole preparation, a whole like response ready. I'm like, you know, this gamma ray burst, like if they were trying to send a message to Earth, doesn't make sense because how far away it was. They would have sent it before our star had even formed.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And I had it all ready, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do one check about something. And it was that how widespread is this misinformation? And I learned that I very well might have been the only person who read this article. Not only is it an almost unusable website, but it is extraordinarily clearly made with like an AI chatbot. Like it's clearly a ChatGPT written article. The picture is like clearly an AI generated image. And on top of that, it's so low quality to the point where like 3/4 through the article, it just decides to start writing in French for a few paragraphs and then goes back to English.
That's incredible.
And I was like, what I thought was interesting is that there's a whole misinformation ecosystem here of like lapsed domain, bought up, turn into this weird SEO content thing full of this AI generated stuff. Like it's a whole dead internet theory, like investigation I did. And then I'm like, but the story never went anywhere. Literally nobody ate this slop. And so, except for me. I ate it all up like a big old big old piggy.
And the Reddit subreddits I was scrolling through where I found it and sent it to you initially.
So
which was basically just r/pluribus, because it is basically the story of Pluribus the TV show. And it's like, we got a communication from billions of light years away. And I'm just like, pluribus? Yeah.
So, but the thing is that I am now going to be keeping my eye out for that, because at some point, something from that kind of like weird, when you do enough content creation on the internet, you find like there are weird parts of the internet where like no human was involved with the creation of any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like this weird, like it's somebody's making some money off of it somehow. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And I kind of delved into that for too long. But I do think that at some point, something from that fucking cesspit is going to become, is going to get picked up and probably put on TikTok. And then I can properly make an episode. And I've done all the research about how those weird things happen.
Good.
So that
well, I apologize for sending you down that may have been a wash, but have you considered?
What if it were true?
Think about that.
I got to the point where I was like, one of the words they used in here, like a file name, might have been metadata from the website. Like, is that kind of thing. Like, it hallucinated pretty hard. It's like it wasn't even made by a good AI. It was made by like an AI that apparently starts speaking in French randomly. Okay. We just released, this is a very fresh one. So as of the release this episode, we're recording this episode on the day that episode 142 has gone out live.
Gotcha.
Let me just verify. Episode 143 went out live today for the public. And in episode 141, which was I think our Q&A for last season.
Okay.
Let me just do a quick verification on that. 141, yeah, it was our backer exclusive Q&A. So I made that episode, and then a bunch of people, I don't even remember what we were talking about in the context of this, but I mentioned saying something about Pokemon and Ash Ketchum still being around, and we got a whole lot of comments that said, did you know that Ash Ketchum is not on Pokemon anymore? What is wrong with you?
No.
He is no longer the protagonist of Pokemon, and he hasn't been since 2023.
He became the Pokemon champion.
Yeah.
I remember this.
So yeah, Ash Ketchum, no longer the main protagonist of the Pokemon anime. Ash and Pikachu ended their thing with an 11-episode epilogue series in early 2023 that wrapped up his journey after he became the world champion. It's funny because I remember when this happened too. I just didn't know that. I remember hearing that he became a Pokemon master finally, but then I didn't hear anything about him leaving the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was the end of his story. I didn't think that was the I understand that that's sort of the top of the tippy top of the top. You know, you're the world champion. I get that. But like, he's still a kid. He's still got stories to tell. You know,
he's been 10 years old for 20 years.
He's been 10 years old for 20 years. He's so young. He's got life in him. He's so young. He's so healthy. He's basically our new Eric Von Daniken.
Yeah. He's been 10 years old for 20 years, which basically means he's a millennial. Take that, millennials.
Yeah.
So there you go. That one resolved. Okay. This next one is one that was an example of how I make my worst mistakes on this when I think of something that is either a fun fact or a thing that I just kind of said off the top of my head.
Yeah. When we're speaking off the cuff.
Yes. And then, but sometimes this can be hurtful or harmful. So, we got an email, a few days ago by, Yatsuda. I don't know Thai, so, forgive me, but, Jitsuda Arifong or Arifong sent us an email, and it was, I was just moved because her email sounded kind of sad. Are kind of like disappointed in us, and that made me.
Of course.
So I'll read the full thing so that I don't fully break. But dear sirs, my husband is a fan of your show and often listens to your podcast on Spotify while driving. Thank you, husband. Appreciate it. Unfortunately, I was in the car during your January 2nd episode in which you were discussing and fact checking a previous mistake. Which
I just want to also say. I think you are correct in saying, unfortunately, you were in the car while listening, and we're so sorry that you had to listen to us.
Yeah. If you're in this one too, I'm sorry.
I am so sorry.
Denounce and reject myself for however
you're allowed
butchering
to change
your name, however I did.
You're allowed to change the episode, skip forward, go to a different podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That and no judgment.
Yeah. What's Radiolab doing? Go check up on Radiolab. They're probably doing something
See
fun.
what they're up to.
Yeah.
I wish I had
okay.
other podcasts I could reference, but I don't.
Podcasts are one of those things that are so niche that I'm like, just like kill the computer. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's probably a podcast that like 20 people.
I know we're getting sidetracked within a correction, but the only podcasts I listen to are like tech news podcasts, and I don't really want to recommend them because most of the time I disagree with a lot of their takes. So it's not even like I'm just like, yeah, go listen to this podcast because it's great. I'm just like, go listen to this podcast if you can put up with it. Anyway, let's get back to the correction, though.
During the segment on Pearl Harbor, it was mentioned that Japan invaded Pearl Harbor at the same time as other Southeast Asian countries such as Malaysia, Singapore, Burma, modern-day Myanmar, and Thailand because they were British colonies. As a Thai person, I would like to respectfully point out that Thailand has never been colonized by any European power during the colonial era. This is an important part of our history and something we're very proud of. I hope this clarification can be acknowledged and corrected in a future episode. Well, best regards, Thai Canadian. Well, Thai Canadian.
Yes.
We're doing that right now.
We're doing it.
And I'm hoping that you will understand that this comes from my general lack of knowledge of World War II history, because I've been a dad, but I haven't been a dad long enough that I haven't turned 40 yet, and at 40 is when I have to decide whether I'm going to have an encyclopedic knowledge of World War II or smoke meat. So I have to figure that out. But
Tristan, I know you. I know which one you're going to be.
Me smoking meat.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So this was a mix of a few things I know, and then I conflated. I added Thailand into a mix of countries that it wasn't part of. So let me get the record straight, and also I learned some really fun history that I'll teach with you. So it is true that Japan invaded multiple Southeast Asian territories simultaneously with Pearl Harbor. Thailand's status was fundamentally different, though, from other countries in the region. So Malaysia, or British Malaya, Singapore, and Burma, i.e. modern-day Myanmar, were British colonies that the British attacked them. Thailand was never colonized by any European power, and it remained an independent nation throughout the colonial era. The reason why is because Thailand was a really interesting buffer state. So in modern day, like Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, these countries were part of a colonial structure called French Indochina. So France had colonized. I don't know if you have a map of Southeast Asia in your head or any kind, but
I mean, I have one on the wall, like everyone does in their home.
Okay, yeah. So if you look at if everyone consults your map, you'll see Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and I don't know if there are some other countries involved there. So I'm already
for the listener.
I'm already on thin ice here.
We record audio. This is a pure audio podcast, and I'm like doing visual bits where I'm actively looking at a blank wall right now to try and sell the illusion.
Oh, I thought you actually had a map in your room or something.
That's how good I am at acting, Tristan. Yeah. I'm so good at this.
Okay. Well, everybody, as long as you're not driving with your wife in the car listening to the podcast, and you're probably putting on Radiolab at this point.
Yeah.
But if you have a map, those countries were part of what was called a colony that was called French Indochina. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of Thailand would have been Burma / Myanmar, and like India after that, and like modern day Bangladesh and stuff. Those were all British like colonies, right? Mm-hmm. And Thailand was right in the middle between two countries, Britain and France, two countries that I think you might know have a history of not exactly being the best of friends. On top of that, in other parts of the world, like for Iran, for example, there was more direct colonial confrontation between Russia and Britain, and it led to a lot of things, including having to a lot of wars, and it's called the Great Game. And Russia and Britain both expended a lot of resources dealing with this conflict. So Thailand was this strategic buffer state between British-controlled Burma in the west and French Indochina in the east. Both colonial powers thought it advantageous to keep Thailand independent rather than competing for controlling it. They don't want another Great Game here.
Gotcha.
And the Thai monarchs of the time, particularly King Rama IV and King Rama V, actually used some pretty clever diplomacy and made strategic territorial concessions while preserving their sovereignty. So Thailand's leadership implemented significant modernization reforms to create a centralized state with Western-style institutions and prove they can govern effectively without colonial oversight. Because a lot of like, the excuses for setting up colonies in these countries was like, these people don't know how to govern themselves, so we'll come in and set up all these institutions so that they can, take care of themselves. It doesn't hurt that we're also just going to steal all their resources and starve their people. But but the Thai leadership managed to build a centralized state and get all those institutions without the colonialism. But then one part where I was slightly right, which is that Japan did invade Thailand. They invaded Thailand on December 8th, 1941, just hours, just around the time of the Pearl Harbor attack. After about 5 hours of fighting, the Thai government arranged a ceasefire and then formed a military alliance with Japan on December 14th, 1941, as an independent nation negotiating with another power, not as a colonized territory.
Gotcha.
And yeah, Thailand's status as the only Southeast Asian country never colonized by a European power is a source of national pride for the Thai people and reflects an achievement of their leadership and diplomacy during an era where basically all neighboring countries were colonies. So thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you for the correction and for helping us learn more about Thailand's really cool history. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah,
actually.
It's on my mind a lot lately too because I don't know if you know too much about. I guess you wouldn't. There's no reason for you to. But Canada's had like a big change in our immigration policy lately. I'm sure that this person, since they're Canadian, would understand. And I have a really good friend who's Thai. He was like a local photographer. We worked together. And he was like on the pathway to permanent residency and citizenship. The grueling and hard process of immigrating to this country that I have become very aware of at work at my job because I work in immigration at the moment. For now, until February 10th. But my friend, due to the changing policies, because we just made it a lot harder to immigrate to Canada, especially if you don't like have like one of like the 5 types of jobs that they wanted. And he was a photographer, so he wasn't gonna. That photographer wasn't on the list,
right?
And so now he is back in Thailand and he can't get back to Canada. Oh. And it makes me very sad because I miss him. He was we worked on a video project together, like a freelance project together. And
yeah, no, that sucks.
Yeah. Are you ready for the Leaf Zone?
Tristan? I'm going to say it, Tristan. I'm going to say a thing. I think people should just be allowed to go to whatever country they want to go to. I think you're allowed to just move around.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's allowed.
I'm the kind of person who would say we probably shouldn't even have countries to immigrate to. Like, just no countries. Would be great.
I'm pretty much there with you, I think. I don't know if, Tristan, I don't know if you keep up with anything happening in the United States. But we got a lot of weird, and by that I mean horrifying, truly horrifying, evil shit happening in regards to
it's on our minds due to the fact that it's a pretty decent chance that, not decent, but like a larger chance than has existed in many centuries of my country being invaded by your country sometime this year, because everybody in Canada is saying, hey, if they take Greenland, that is them basically like getting ready to take on us. Like all of their arguments for taking Greenland are the exact same arguments for taking Canada.
Yeah. And then there's so much going on. I can't. Yeah, I enjoy getting time to do podcasts with you so that I can, see some joy in the world in your face.
Would you like some corrections that have literally been waiting since Biden was president to talk about?
I would love to. Can I read them?
Sure. So these are we're now in the Leaf Zone.
We're in the Leaf Zone.
So let me give some context before I sound like a complete dick about this. So I made a few episodes. I think maybe like this is only like there was a period. This was kind of right before we started taking like the really long break on the podcast, where we did a lot of Nazi specific episodes.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a bunch of, the idea is basically like this person watched through a bunch of our episodes or listened to a bunch of our episodes.
Yes.
And basically made several corrections that are all specifically about how bad I covered Christianity in various contexts. So all of it is about all of it's about Christianity and Christian history and that kind of stuff.
So maybe I will be the one to read these as the closest of the two of us to God. Even though I'm very
because
much
you're in
an
America
atheist.
where God lives.
I'm in America where God lives, where Jesus visited in the third Testament. I think that's Mormonism. All right. Here is the first one we have. You have seemed to imply a level of compatibility between Christianity and Nazism that is not and was not possible. Even among the sizable population of the Nazi Party who did profess to be Christians, they can neither be called at all devout nor at all orthodox. Several of them made efforts to replace real Christianity with a constructed religion, which had to be based off of a Christian core in order to appeal to the majority. The fascist doctrines, by their very nature, are rigorously opposed to all religion that is not a worship of the nation state itself. Obviously, the fascist states only didn't outlaw real religion entirely because doing so would alienate the majority. That's
all right. Yeah, so this one, so I will say you are right, but it's complicated. So let me delve in my way too extensive fashion. So the core of this correction is right. Nazism as an ideology and as a long-term project was fundamentally incompatible with Orthodox Christianity historically, even though many Nazis were baptized Christians and used Christian language.
Mm-hmm.
But the project in a long-term scale was incompatible. As we are, this email is now a few years old, so I haven't put a point out that fascist ideology and Christianity, even if they are incompatible, still seem to be able to sometimes dance.
Yeah.
Case in point, United States 2025 to 2026.
The good old US of A.
Yeah. Americans have found out, have made that synthesis happen. But leading Nazis did treat Christianity like it was a rival worldview that they wanted to either neutralize or replace, but not partner with. Some examples. Martin Bormann wrote explicitly in 1941 that National Socialism and Christianity were irreconcilable and that church influence must absolutely and finally be broken. Hitler's circle, including Bormann, Himmler, and Rosenberg, pushed a hard anti-church Kirchenkampf, or church struggle, against both Catholic and Protestant institutions. So, that. Sorry, I just opened the wrong tab and then I was like, because it wasn't in dark mode and my eyes broke.
Gotcha.
What looked like Christian Nazism was largely a constructed or instrumental pseudo-Christianity, not Orthodox faith. I would argue that there's a lot of Christians that practice a thing that is incompatible with Christianity, but seems to be still called that, but that's semantics. The regime promoted positive Christianity, which was a Nazi reinterpretation that stripped Christianity of its Jewish roots, marginalized or rejected the Old Testament, recast Jesus as a non-Jewish Aryan, and subordinated doctrine to a racial ideology and loyal to Hitler. Which is to the point where I'll point out on this note that modern day neo-Nazis and the modern day far right have this exact division still happen between like pagan Volkists and, far right fundamentalist Christians. Hans Kurl, who was Hitler's minister for church affairs, stated that positive Christianity was not based on the Apostles' Creed or faith in Christ as the Son of God, but on the Nazi Party and its new revelation with Hitler as its herald. Plans advanced by figures like Rosenberg envisioned expelling foreign Christian nations, replacing the Bible with Art of the Deal, Mein Kampf, and substituting the cross with the swastika as the central Christian symbol. Positions clearly outside of any Orthodox Christian framework. Many Nazis, though, called themselves Christians, and many churchgoers supported or accommodated the regime. I will point out, including the fucking Pope, not exactly the Pope looking the other way for all of the Jews who were being killed and murdered and genocided. A large portion of the German population in the Nazi Party were still formerly Catholic or Protestant and saw no immediate contradiction between national loyalty and religious identity. Historians have shown significant accommodation and even enthusiasm among some German Christians, marked by theological compromise, nationalism, and anti-Semitism rather than confessional orthodoxy. Both major churches ultimately faced repression, though. The regimes surveilled, restricted, and harassed Catholic and Protestant institutions because they represented independent sources of authority that were not derived from the state. The point that fascist ideology tends towards a form of civil religion, centered on the nation state, is well-grounded, though it did not always mean immediate abolition of traditional religion. In classic fascist doctrine, the state is conceived as absolute, with nothing above or outside it. It's a position many Christian theologians identify as idolatry because it denies the higher authority of God. Fascist regimes sacralize the nation, the leader, and state symbols, and turn politics into a sort of secular worship that structurally clashes with religions claiming transcendental authority. Does this sound familiar at all?
You're starting to say things that are making me... You remember like a few minutes ago when I said I enjoyed doing this podcast because it's sort of like a nice escape from the outside world?
Yeah.
You're starting to say things that are pulling me back.
Yeah. In practice, regimes like Nazi Germany often co-opted rather than banned churches and used agreements and concordats to calm the population and buy time while pursuing long-term plans to subordinate or erode Christianity. So, on the whole, Leaf, you are substantially correct.
Thank you.
But there are some useful nuances. There was real overlap in personnel and rhetoric, and some Nazis and church leaders sincerely imagined a Christian Nazism. But this depended on major distortions of historic Christian doctrine and ethics. I would argue that distorting doctrine and ethics is all religions do that.
Yeah.
The incompatibility is clearest at the level of ideology and long-term goals, a totalizing racial state cult that makes nation or race the most important category cannot coexist in the long run with a Christianity that claims ultimate allegiance belongs to God. So I know that was a mouthful, but it's an important subject and one that people talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And so I thought I would.
I think it's interesting, and we'll get to more of Leaf's comments, but I think this is an interesting one to start on because I don't know. I get what they're saying, that Christianity and Nazism are not compatible. Like when you look at them, what they actually believe. But I guess my sort of follow-up and sort of what you've sort of talked about here is but that doesn't stop people from believing both. Yeah, I get that they're incompatible, but that doesn't stop other people from trying to do both, as we've discussed, as we've talked about in America currently.
Yeah. It turns out that people are remarkably good at being comfortable with inconsistency and manage to hold extremely contradictory things in their head. There are people who, will hear a sermon on love thy neighbor and think that they're fully in concordance with that, while they rat their neighbors out to immigration and...
Yeah, to ICE. Yeah.
Abolish ICE. Abolish ICE, everybody.
Abolish ICE. Fuck ICE.
All right, next one.
Let's move on to the next one. All right. It's me, Leaf, again. Saying that medieval people... yeah, it's a me, Leaf. Saying that medieval people simply, quote, did not care about history, end quote, is highly misleading. History as an academic discipline was greatly respected among them. They merely didn't care about the physical evidence of history, as the belief of time, by and large, was that if something was written down, it must have happened, thus making archaeology redundant.
Okay.
And that's me, and that's Leaf.
So this one... So what I'll say is this is partly right and partly wrong. Medieval elites did care about history, but not as a modern academic discipline. And I was inaccurate to say that they didn't care about it is inaccurate to say that they didn't care about physical evidence or that they simply believed that anything written must be true. So did medieval people respect history? Medieval clerics and rulers valued historical writing, especially chronicles of saints and saints' lives, as tools for understanding divine providence, legitimizing dynasties, and teaching moral lessons.
Okay.
History mattered because it explained how God's plan unfolded over time and how present authority fits into that plan.
Okay.
However, history was not this history as we know it today. The independent formal discipline with professional historians did not exist at the time. It was embedded with theology, rhetoric, and moral instruction rather than treated as an academic field governed by its own methods and norms. Now, medieval historians did lean heavier on earlier text and on authority. They often copied, continued, or adapted previous works to preserve continuity and tradition. And this approach is very different from how modern source criticism works. But it does not mean that they believed that anything written down must be true. Authors such as Bede explicitly wrote about a true law of history, and medieval writers did exercise judgments. Their standards of credibility were theological, moral, and rhetorical, rather than empirical in the modern sense, but they were not simply credulous. Also, the claim that people did not care about physical evidence is a touch too strong. They cared intensely about relics, saints' bones, and sacred objects, which were collected, authenticated, through ecclesiastical procedures, fiercely competed over, and housed with elaborate reliquaries. Medieval Europeans were also deeply aware of the visible remains of the Roman past. Ruins, aqueducts, baths, and roads prompted reflection on earlier grandeur and decline, even if these remains were not studied using anything like modern archaeological methods. To live in medieval Europe would be to live in the ruins of the former Roman Empire, and you couldn't not think about that. Like, people knew.
You couldn't escape that.
Yeah. They knew about the Roman Empire. They knew what it was. They knew that they were living in the wake of a very different time.
Yeah.
And it is true that archaeology, as the systemic scientific discipline we know of today, did not exist in the Middle Ages. Material-based reconstruction of the past is fairly recent, at least comparatively. But medieval writers did sometimes use material traces. They used inscriptions, monuments, churches, and tombs as corroborating signs of past events, especially in hagiographies and local histories. So physical evidence wasn't considered irrelevant, but more subordinated to textual authority. So writing was just considered more important. And theological meaning was also more important, which there is some carryover to today where there's still a kind of divide in academia between the physical construction of the past and the written construction of the past, i.e. like the dividing line between historians and archaeologists, which is one of those things that we should probably be doing more collaboration on.
No,
so
let them fight.
Yes.
Let them fight. Put them in a big pit, let them fight.
When I said that medieval people didn't have a lot of reverence for history, that did erase the sort of role of chronicles and histories and saints' lives and how elites understood time, identity, and God's plan. At the same time, the correction that Leaf provided does kind of overstate the case by treating medieval history as an academic discipline comparable to modern historiography, by implying that medieval people dismissed physical evidence outright. Medieval historical thought was text first, providential and moralizing, but it was not text only, and it was not based on the simplistic idea that if it was written, it happened.
Gotcha. Text first, but not text only.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
Sorry, these
All
are...
right.
This is the reason I avoided these for so long, is that all of them required like an essay in and of themselves to answer.
But we're
and I didn't want to fuck it up. Yeah.
This is Leaf's episode. You asked for this. All right, should I move on to the next one?
Yes.
All right. Hello, it's me, Leaf, again. In the most recently uploaded episode, I assume it's the Zoroastrian one that we did, considering this question. This response has a lot to do with Zoroastrianism. All right. In the most recently uploaded episode, you said that Mithra wasn't a Zoroastrian god. This isn't true either. Oh, man. This is getting really intense, Tristan. That's some editorializing by me. This is not Leaf. Mithra was originally a major divinity in Zoroastrian tradition, who was then stolen by the Romans and had his name used for a largely unrelated cult. Additionally, Oh no, how do I say this word?
Achaemenid.
Achaemenid, thank you. Additionally, the Achaemenid Empire, the first really huge Persian empire and the first major nation to make Zoroastrianism its state religion, which you probably were thinking of when you said Zoroastrian Empire, did
Fucking
have
shade
control.
throne.
Oh, did have control over a lot of Anatolia, including
Cappadocia.
Thank you, Cappadocia, but they never converted them to Zoroastrianism or anything like that. Take that, Tristan. That's me, Leaf, once again.
I feel like I'm reading too much bad faith into this. I don't want to. I should probably come off as less adversarial. Okay.
I know. Is it my tone? I don't know. Leaf.
It's got a bit of an edge.
Look, this is not an attack on Leaf. Leaf's giving us and things that we're responding to, and we're learning.
These are
well
thought out critiques.
These are well thought out critiques, and we're addressing them. They do come across a little agitated, which, to be fair, sometimes we say things that are wrong, and that agitates people. So
yeah, I mean, look what I said about Thailand. Jesus.
Look what you said about Ash Ketchum. Unbelievable.
Look what I said about Ash Ketchum. Yeah. Okay. So you're right. Mithra is a fully Zoroastrian divinity, and that Roman Mithraism was a later significantly transformed cult, drawing on an Iranian name and some motifs rather than just a copy of Zoroastrian worship.
I cannot believe, Tristan, that you let me read that whole correction and you didn't correct me on my pronunciation of Mithra. I said Mithra the whole time, and you sat there and
it's because I don't know which one's right. You might be right. Okay. I might be wrong.
All right, fair enough. We'll get another correction soon enough.
Yep. Now we got both of them, so at least we got one right.
That's right.
You're also, though, right that the Achaemenid Empire ruled much of Anatolia, including Cappadocia, without converting those regions wholesale to Zoroastrianism. In fact, I don't think Zoroastrianism was that into like large conversions. Like all of the sort of empires that, at least the Achaemenids, but other Zoroastrian empires were fairly multi-religious. So Mithra appears in the Avesta as a major Yasata, which is a sort of divinity that's worthy of worship under Ahura Mazda, with his own hymn and epithets. And in Zoroastrian tradition, Mithra is especially associated with covenants, oaths, and watchfulness. He plays a central role in guarding Asha, truth, and the cosmic order, and punishing those who break contracts.
Yeah, actually, that's
given the region, what's that wonderful what's his name? A silver merchant.
I don't know.
No. It's like it's from the region. I think it's much older, but there's like one of the oldest pieces of writing we know is like a letter complaining about the quality of somebody's like silver or something like that.
Hell yeah.
Let me just see if I can find it. I might not be silver.
One of the oldest things we have is like a Yelp review. That's incredible.
Basically, yes.
A 1-star
one
Yelp
of the earliest
review.
One of the earliest pieces of writing we have is the complaint tablet to Ea Nashir.
Put it on the complaint tablet. All right.
Yeah. It's on a cuneiform. A trader who sold substandard copper, it wasn't silver, it was copper, to a customer named Nani, and he was unsatisfied with the quality of the substandard copper and wrote a cuneiform complaint addressing the poor service and mistreatment of his servant.
You know, that's what we need. In addition to a revised corrections form that we'll get on, we also need a link to the complaint tablet, and it's just
the complaint. Complain about Ea Nashir.
Complain about whatever you want to complain about, but the great part about the complaint tablet is that it doesn't go to a Notion database that we can read. It goes to nowhere, and it's just a way for you to vent, and we don't have to see it, and we love that for you.
I need to find the translation because it's very good. All right. Tell Ea Nashir Nani sends the following message.
Oh.
When you came, you said to me as follows: I will give Gimil Sin, when he comes, fine quality copper ingots. You left them, but you did not do what you promised me. You put ingots which were not good before my messenger sits in and said, if you want to take them, take them. If you do not want to take them, go away. What do you take me for that you treat somebody like me with such contempt? I have sent as messengers gentlemen like ourselves to collect the bag with my money, deposited with you. But you have treated me with contempt by sending them back to me empty-handed several times, and that through enemy territory. Is there anyone among the merchants who trades with Telmun who has treated me in this way? You alone treat my messenger with contempt. On account of the one trifling mina of silver which I owe you, you feel free to speak in such a way, while I have given to the palace on your behalf 1,080 pounds of copper, and Umi Abum has likewise given 1,080 pounds of copper apart from what both have written on a sealed tablet to be kept in the temple of Samas. How have you treated me for that copper? You have withheld my money bag from me in enemy territory. It is now up to you to restore my money to me in full. Take cognizance that, from now on, I will not accept here any copper from you that is not of fine quality. I shall from now on select and take ingots individually in my own yard, and I shall exercise against you my right of rejection because you have treated me with contempt. So it's
I
more
would
like
give
this, like a Facebook
0
post.
stars if the website would allow me, but I can only give 1.
It's beautiful. It's become an internet meme, but yeah.
That's
so
incredible.
Mithra would have definitely
Loved that.
taken out Aenashir.
Yeah.
Modern scholarship and Zoroastrian sources consistently treat Mithra as a integral, long-standing figure within the Zoroastrian religion and not as a non-Zoroastrian deity later added from outside. The Roman cult of Mithras, prominent in the imperial army from roughly the 1st to the 4th century, is generally understood as a Greco-Roman mystery religion. It reused the Iranian name Mithra and some Eastern imagery, so it was cultural appropriation basically, but reworked them into a new system, including the bull slaying, 7 initiation grades, and a strongly astrological cosmology. Scholars still debate the precise nature of the connection between Iranian Mithra and Roman Mithras. Some argue for stronger lines of continuity, others for a largely Roman invention with Iranian flavor. There is, however, a broad agreement that Roman Mithraism is not simply Zoroastrian Mithra worship transplanted intact into the Roman world. In that sense, like Mithra as the original major Zoroastrian deity whose name and certain aspects were adapted into a largely different Roman cult is a fair summary of the mainstream scholarly position, even if the details are remain contested. All right, on Achaemenid rule and religion in Anatolia.
Yes.
Which I never thought I'd have to say. The Achaemenid Empire did control. Yeah. The Achaemenid Empire did control large parts of Anatolia, including Cappadocia from the 6th to the 4th centuries BCE, governing through satraps, which I think is sort of something kind of like a protectorate or like a tributary state kind of thing.
Okay.
Evidence suggests that later Achaemenid kings followed a form of Mazdaeasian. I should have read this one out loud. Mazdaeasnian religion, closely related to Zoroastrianism, but functioned primarily as the religion of the royal court and Iranian elites rather than as an aggressively imposed empire-wide orthodoxy. In Anatolia and other provinces, local cults, Anatolian, Mesopotamian, and Greek continued to operate while Iranian religious practices spread alongside Persian elites and garrisons. There's no evidence for a mass conversion of Cappadocians or other Anatolian populations to Zoroastrianism. Also, calling the Achaemenid state a Zoroastrian empire is a shorthand sometimes used because the royal court appears to have practiced a form of Zoroastrianism. The phrase becomes misleading if it implies a uniformly Zoroastrian population or a policy of forced conversion. So, yes, Achaemenid is a precise description. Zoroastrian empire is sometimes it's not incorrect, to defend myself.
Sure.
And yeah, it was still a very pluralistic religion.
Yeah.
Especially in places like Anatolia. Okay. So that was that one.
All right. We're 2 away. How are we feeling?
We can do this.
We can do it.
If we don't finish Leaf, we're never gonna we can't come back. We gotta get through it. There's no way out but through.
All right, I'm gonna read this one with a little reverb for some extra
Oh no, Professor X is going to read this one.
Oh yeah, man, we have bits for everything.
Well, we just released an episode. Professor X related episode just came out, and people liked it.
All right, cool. All right, Professor X is going to read this one as Leaf. Hello, it's me, Leaf. Just a regular...
Played by Professor X, played by Scott.
Played by Professor X. It seems to me that you have overrepresented the later Christian modification to Josephus's mention of Jesus Christ. The consensus is that the passage was merely edited, such as to remove lines like "was said to be," whereas you said, or at least would be obviously interpreted as saying, that the entire thing was a later addition, and Josephus made no mention of Jesus Christ at all. You're going to have to help me understand what Leaf is talking about here, but that was me, Leaf.
Okay. So I'll get to explain this.
A little context, I guess.
Yeah. So Josephus was a Roman historian, or a Roman, like a sort of alive in the Roman times, chronicler of stuff. And to this day, like Josephus's writings probably have the only secular contemporary writing of the existence of Jesus.
I remember
this. The thing though is that Josephus's writings have been massaged by medieval scholars to make it a little bit stronger than it is. A lot of this is coming from the fact that, and I'll admit to this being a thing that a wrong belief I held for a long time. There was a good chunk of time, I feel like the Mithra one is also related, where I went down the path of the not believing in historical Jesus path for a while.
Oh, interesting.
So it's definitely doesn't stand up to the evidence. But when I was like, I kind of adopted a lot of that. I kind of got into a lot of that when I was like an edgy teenager. And a lot of this stuff is like the debate over historical Jesus. Even the Mithra stuff actually is slightly related.
Interesting. And
this is one of the things, like this is one of the points, because this is like one of like the few secular things that we can like definitively say that a Jesus existed. And now, growing up and having, done more reading and stuff, it's pretty well concluded that there was a person named Jesus who existed, who definitely did something that caused Christianity to emerge from it.
Okay.
But the thing is that I always then have a lot of like, things that I believed or internalized that I realize I'm like, oh, that is also a part of that belief structure that I have to like return to and find what really happened and
Kristen,
kind of walk my way out.
That's good recognition on your part. That's good and that's healthy that you recognize that, and I applaud you for that.
But that is where a lot of this stuff is coming from. I won't lie. So
sure.
Yes, Leaf is correct that that is the mainstream scholarly view. The dominant position today is that Josephus actually did refer to Jesus in the writing Antiquities 18, the Testimonium Flavianum.
Ooh, sounds yummy.
But that all of the surviving text of it has been edited by later Christian hands, but not invented whole cloth. So The modern consensus have a sort of partial interpolation model. Josephus likely wrote a neutral or mildly skeptical notice about Jesus in overtly Christian phrases such as "he was the Christ." In language implying resurrection are later additions or modifications. So we have evidence that Josephus wrote that the scholars at least seem to be under the impression that Jesus, like he did write a neutral thing about Jesus' existence and references to being the Christ. But what was added or modified later was that there's writings that he said that he resurrected and came back from the dead and stuff, and that so you can imagine a medieval scholar was like, oh, here's this writing about Jesus, but it doesn't mention that he came back from the dead. I'll just go fix that.
I'm going to edit that in really quickly.
Yeah.
Here's this obituary of Eric von Daniken. Oh, I didn't mention how young and healthy he was. Let me just fix that real quickly.
Oh, Jesus. No pun intended.
How can we not talk about it? It's the biggest news happening to us right now.
I literally have not gone. I mean, it's only been like 3 days, but I don't think it's been
Tristan,
more than
wait,
6
3 days. Tristan, wait, what happened on the third day? Tristan,
somebody
no.
go look. Somebody go to the feed. See if he got up. But like in 3 days, I don't think I have gone more than 6 hours without getting one notification or comment or email about this event.
Can I tell you, and Emily won't, I don't know if she'll be happy with me sharing this. When I told her that Eric von Daniken died, her immediate response, and I mean immediate, the moment the final D in died left my lips, she burst out laughing. The hardest I've heard her laugh in weeks.
Because she just knew what that meant for your future, I think.
She knew. She knew.
So I will say, because there was so many people who tried to reach out about this, Charlie S. or Charlie Stevenson emailed to tell us about him being dead. And you were the person who I first found out about it from. So you get the informed a host of this podcast about the death of Eric von Daniken award.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, back to Josephus. So the second shorter reference in Antiquities 20, which said James, the brother of Jesus, who is called the Christ, is regarded as authentically Josephine by an overwhelming majority of scholars, and the passage strongly reinforces the view that Josephus did mention Jesus somewhere in his work.
Sure.
Because we don't have all of it.
All right, yeah.
So there is a real but minority scholarly position arguing that the entire testimonium is a later Christian insertion, sometimes associated with claims that Eusebius or later copyists composed it. A small number of scholars and mythicist-leaning authors, basically people who don't believe in historical Jesus, believe he was a mythological figure, have defended that this view, which can create the impression in popular discussions that scholarly opinions more evenly divided than it actually is. This is an extreme minority of scholars at this point. So in textual scholarship, saying Josephus never mentioned Jesus at all and the whole thing is later fabrication is a extreme minority position that is probably not true. Describing the testimonium as a Josephine notice, later Christianized, aligns more with the modern interpretation. Even scholars who debate the exact wording often reconstruct something like Jesus, a wise man, and who was called Christ, or was said to be Christ as original. Precisely the kind of neutral formulation that you referenced. So, yeah. That was a my bad.
Yeah.
Ding.
Oh, wait, hold on. Alternatively,
we're struggling.
So could go either way on that one. And I've already read the last correction. And this one, I'm sorry, Tristan, you got cooked with this one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is the last one by Leaf, and I wish I could throw just like a sick beat behind it. Because this is some beef. This feels like some beef now. This is some Leaf beef. All right, you ready? You have identified, or at least encouraged identification of, Christ with Mithra. You, for example, imply that the reason Jesus is written as having 12 followers is because Mithra had 12 followers, entirely ignoring the extremely plausible claim that Jesus is described as having 12 disciples simply because he did. You fool. You absolute moron.
I feel like
I editorialized that one at the end, yeah.
This line needs to be put in Sona as like a sort of like rap battle type thing.
This one.
Yeah.
How are you going to recover from this one?
Well, this is honestly just a continuation from this is again coming back to the historical versus mythological Jesus thing that I could unpack. Because the thing is like that. No one was there 2,000 years ago to say whether they chose 12 because there was 12 or it was 12 because 12 is a very important number. But let's go. So the correction is right. Yeah. Identifying Christ with Mithras on the basis of 12 followers is not founded. There's no Mithraic texts or iconography that describes Mithra as a teacher with 12 disciples in anything like gospel sense, and specialists in Mithraic studies regard that claim as a modern exaggeration or a distortion. So, bad Tristan on that one. The 12 in Mithraic material comes from the zodiacs, not from the narrative circle of human followers. Mithraic Tauroctony reliefs often show that Mithras slaying a bull in a cave with the 12 signs of the zodiac arranged around the scene as cosmic or astrological markers. These images are not stories about Mithras leading the 12 disciples, but cosmic diagrams using astrology, which was common religious language in the Roman world. The modern Jesus' Mithra parallels, including the 12 disciples, mostly arose in 19th or 20th century popularizing scholarship and later internet literature, not from the actual Roman cult of Mithras. Earlier influential scholars such as Franz Cumont tried to draw strong lines from Persian Mithra to Roman Mithras and then to Christianity, but more recent Mithraic scholarship has largely abandoned such tight continuity and is very cautious about claims of direct borrowing. Detailed examination by both secular and Christian histories point out that many alleged parallels, virgin birth, crucifixion, resurrection, 12 disciples, cannot be traced to pre-Christian Mithraic sources. By contrast, the 12 disciples of Jesus have a straightforward Jewish historical and theological rationale that makes sense without Mithraism. So there is still the fact that 12 is still a very significant number in Judaism. So in Second Temple Judaism, the number 12 symbolized the 12 tribes of Israel. As you might remember, there is another story about a man who had 12 people in his life. They were just his brothers. He had a Technicolor Dreamcoat. Which is the only way that I learned the Bible, is through
Donny Osmond.
Through Donny Osmond, who's a Mormon. So the Gospels themselves explicitly connect the choice of 12 disciples to the idea of renewed or restored Israel. For example, the saying about the disciples sitting on the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes. Within that context, it's intrinsically plausible that a historical Jewish teacher forming a symbolic core group would choose 12 followers for Israel-focused reasons without needing any Mithraic model. Could also say that maybe some of them were either added or subtracted in order to fit something. Who knows? It was over 2,000 years ago.
Who knows?
Yeah. Where there is apparently similarity, a central savior figure and surrounding 12, the direction of influence is at best ambiguous and often chronologically unfavorable to the claim that Christianity copied Mithraism. Some of the zodiac circle Mithraic artwork that fuels the modern 12 comparisons interpretation is dated after the emergence and spread of Christianity, making it possible that Mithraic art and Christian imagery developed in parallel, or even that Mithraic symbolism adapted ideas already current in the wider religious environment, that historical timing further weakens the claim that Jesus' 12 disciples were patterned on Mithras. It's been a long time since that episode. Some of this stuff, it's like, did I change my opinion on this in the years since, or is this sort of an overstatement of what I believed at the time, or what I said? But because I think that the position I would more hold, and I hope that I would have said in the past, is that a lot of these details would have been things floating around, there's while it wouldn't be like they copied Mithras, it would be like there's already a well-established thing of like a figure and like having 12 followers and the 12 just being a significant number, and like there's just a lot of like different symbols that they could attach, and given that there's a lot of like mythology there, like that a lot of people were trying to attach as many things to like, this is a person who is like, the new big deal, that they would have attached all sorts of things in that time.
The new it boy.
And so that makes, obviously, trying to figure out what is like things that actually happened versus things that are like attributed later, kind of a difficult job that will probably be something that somebody way more well-read than me can talk about. But also, because it like not to take away anybody's beliefs and faith, but like there are parts of the Jesus biography as we know it contemporarily, that probably, under a worldview that doesn't have the supernatural wouldn't have happened, like coming back from the dead, for example.
For example, we're hoping. I mean,
and miracles and all that kind of stuff.
Look, we're on day 3 of Von Daniken, so like fingers crossed, people can't come back from the dead.
Speaking of that, I did see the movie.
Yeah, it's good. Right?
Don't want to spoil, but I saw the movie.
I know the movie.
Okay.
I will say, Tristan, I've been a little silent while you've been doing this because I have been in the background trying to find a YouTube video that I used to watch so much as a child growing up in church. And I think I found it, and it is 18 years old. That's
a very old YouTube video. That YouTube video can vote.
And it doesn't have as many views as I thought. But this was probably a banger for 18 years ago with 60,000 views. For 18 years ago, that's pretty good. It is about 2.5 minutes long, so I won't play it on this part of the podcast. But you know how we have a little end stinger at the end of each episode? Maybe you don't know this, listener, but hopefully you do. At the end of every episode, you hear the closing music play out, and then there's like another couple seconds where Tristan and I riff and do an extra little joke or something. Maybe I'll play the entirety of this 2-minute thing. It is of Jesus talking to his disciples and telling them all the ways that they have sinned. And I remember it being pretty funny. And I did watch this in church. So, like, part of me is like, there probably can't be too many problematic things in this comedy thing from 18 years ago if I watched it in church. But then I'm also thinking, I don't know if my church growing up was necessarily, not wanting us to say things like the R slur or something like that. So I'm holding off. I haven't watched this since I was a child. Maybe it's good. Or maybe it's terrible. We'll see at the end of this episode if you would like to listen to it with me. But either way, I just wanted you to know I found it.
Okay.
And that's all. And that's it. And maybe it's funny.
Well then. Oh.
So should we wrap up? Is that all of Leaf?
Yeah, Leaf. I hope you're happy. I hope that those were answers to your satisfaction. And I feel like we all learned something today, which is one, Tristan still has a few really bad ideas still rattling around in his empty noggin.
It's an important thing to sort of like understand your own biases or your own gaps in knowledge, or I don't know. It's just important. I love that we do these corrections episodes, and I hope people like listening to them.
I think that, even if they aren't like people's favorites, I do think that it's important that we do this because can you imagine if Ancient Aliens started every season with like all the things they got wrong? Because it would just be them playing the season all over again. But
it would take 2 or 3 seasons. Well, that's what this show is, right? It would take an entire season of a show for one episode that they do to correct what they get wrong.
That is true.
We are the corrections episodes of Ancient Aliens.
It was inspired by the fact I really love, and people, this probably will surprise literally nobody, but I love and am deeply inspired and probably model a lot of my persona online to Adam Conover and Adam Ruins Everything. And I think his, like, the last episode of Adam Ruins Everything was literally him talking about all the things that he was wrong about.
That's cool.
And I thought I had mad respect for that, and so I thought this was a good thing to do, and then, I kept being wrong about stuff in interesting ways. So
I like it. Thanks to everyone who writes in. We will get an updated corrections form as well as a complaint tablet that you can write complaints on. And we'll put that on. We will put that on a link that you can find at probsnotaliens.com, which also has links, weirdly, to all the other things you can do for the show, like, share it with people and support us on Patreon and Nebula and get episodes early when you do those sorts of things. Help me out, Tristan. I feel like I'm in the right ballpark here. For how we
the best way,
episodes.
if you haven't signed up for Nebula, go to nebula.tv/probably-not-aliens, and if you sign up using that link, you help out the podcast for as long as you stay a member, and you get access to all of Nebula and all of the goodness that comes with it. If you want to help with like a kind of direct fund that we use for funding our editors and for equipment and stuff, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/propsnotaliens. And then, of course, leaving positive reviews, word of mouth, all that kind of stuff really, really helps. Yeah. Another thing you should probably check out is NerdSync. And I went to go do my bit of finding an old video, and I couldn't do it because I opened your channel and the most disturbing picture of who I think is Seth Green with his eyes photoshopped into like weird green, and then a guy yelling. I just saw that and I was like, ah!
Hold on, a guy yelling? Hold on, guy yelling?
I don't know, I don't recognize him.
That's Shaggy. That's Matthew Lillard.
Shaggy's a cartoon character.
No, they made live action ones, Tristan. Don't you know this? Boy, you would know a lot more about Scooby-Doo if you follow my YouTube channel, NerdSync. When you think about it, that's NERDSYNC. I make video essays about... You know what actually I've been doing? Follow... Everyone who's been on list, if you're listening to a corrections episode, you probably already follow NerdSync, right? But follow my second channel. It's called NerdSync Sidekick, and that's where I'm posting a lot of slop. And slop is good because I'm gonna be a parent soon, and by the time you're listening to this, I probably am a parent, and I need to feed my child. And the way that I feed my child is through making slop videos on my second channel, and then hopefully having enough time in the future to make good videos again on my main channel. But go subscribe to my second channel. Again, that's NerdSync Sidekick. Thank you very much. Or again, support us on Patreon and support this podcast. And then you support both Tristan and I. Anyway, Tristan, you do other stuff as well other than this podcast. What do you do on YouTube?
Yeah, for real. For like a year, nothing. But as I kind of mentioned somewhere in the show, I am leaving my current day job to come back to content creation. So there's going to be some YouTube videos. By the time this comes out, I should have at least one or two up. I've got that big Hindutva video kind of planned for the end of March. Got a bunch. I don't even know what I'm making for February yet because nobody watches YouTube videos in February. So I got to figure out what I'm going to make for the month nobody watches YouTube videos, for a video that's going to do bad, but and my big return. But I'll think of something. And then there's going to be a Patreon with like a newsletter, and there's this podcast. So
There's so many different ways to support us. It's frankly overwhelming. And you don't have to do all of them. Yeah. But if you can do one of them, that'd be awesome. And if you don't have
one that sounds the most fun to you.
Yeah, whatever sounds the most fun. And Tristan and I, at the end of the year, we compare who has the most Patreon subscribers and who's the most loved. And it's a really fun opportunity for both of us. And if you don't have any money, because, times are horrible right now, so we get it. A great way to support the show for free is just by writing a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you've already written a review, then you can share the podcast with your friends and your family members. All the people who have wronged you. Yeah, that's right. We righted our wrongs. It's time for your enemies to right theirs by listening to this podcast. If you know Georgios Tsoukalos specifically, send him this podcast.
Oh, God.
Because he lied to us about Eric Von Daniken being healthy. And I think he should feel bad.
Alive.
And alive. Thank you so much for listening. That's everything. Again, a great place, a great link is propsnotaliens.com. I am going to play a 2-minute clip at the end of this stinger where Jesus tells all of his disciples what they did wrong. And maybe it'll be funny and maybe it won't. We'll see how my childhood holds up. But until next time, my name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson. The truth is out there. Probably.
Hey, we tried playing the clip and it wasn't very funny. Never mind. Bye.